channel ye Salam TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A dear viewer, my name is Muhammad Sekalala, and this is the Alhidaayah show. We welcome you to perhaps the last episode of the year 2024, inshallah, as we prepare to usher in the new year of 2025. Today is the 30th of December 2024, corresponding to the 29th of Jumada Thani. The year is 1446. As a Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so many things that He has placed in our midst to help us understand and appreciate Him better. So as the year is coming to an end, we want to remind you that as a Muslim, engaging in celebrations to mark the end of the year is something that Islam discourages, and would request that you make it a season of reflecting on what achievements you've made in life as a Muslim, and see where you have shortfalls and see how you can better them in the coming year. So we are always told to say and talk to ourselves, what things have I achieved as a Muslim? Have I improved on my Quran recitation, my understanding of Allah, and the rest? If not, then this should be the time for you to reflect upon the same. Of course, remembering that our year is in the 6th month, meaning we have about 2 months or 259 days to Ramadan, the 9th month. So it tells you that if you're looking at a season where you should maximize your potential and efforts and energy, is the month of Ramadan. So we had better start preparing for the same. That should come towards the end of Feb, inshallah. But in this show, we always want to dissect and appreciate scientific aspects that Allah has placed in our midst to help us understand and appreciate Him better. And today, we want to continue with the series of creatures that we have been looking at that I mentioned in the Holy Quran. And today we are bringing birds, specifically our guest will be telling us there are a number of birds that are mentioned in the Holy Quran. One of them is the Hoope, that is known as the Hoope in Arabic, and then plus so many other birds. So inshallah, we want to understand what is this bird, what are some of the key facts about the bird, and then what lessons should we draw as a Muslim. So to help us understand and appreciate this aspect of science in Islam, wisdom and science, we are of course joined by our usual guest, Mr. Hamza Sekalima, who is a lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda, whom I'm going to request to say salam to you, and we'll get started.
Now, dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank Allah for giving us the gift of life and an opportunity to contemplate about His creation.
Yeah.
Because indeed, by contemplating about the creation of Allah, we have a chance to understand His power and to dedicate ourselves more to Him. Because Allah only wants us to appreciate His presence and to worship Him. That is all that we have as our task. So anything that builds our capacity to do that is something very beneficial to the Muslim.
Now, thank you very much. So viewer, that is our guest. Of course, he's a common face. We want to apologize that in the last 2 weeks we've not been around. We had some travels here and there, and we couldn't. But we are back to ensure that our show continues running. We want to appreciate those that have kept it, or kept watching this show. And remember, if you missed out on the early episodes, kindly visit the Salam YouTube page, type Alhidaayah, and then you'll be in position to make a recap of all that you have missed. So, Mr. Sekalima, as we start off, normally we start with key facts about the creature that we have chosen, and today is the Hoope. I think Arabic, those who read the Quran, Surah An-Naml, they are the ones who have an understanding of the Hoope, but English-wise and the local language is here. Can you help us understand what this bird is?
Now that bird there, in English, it's called a hoopoe.
No.
The word hoopoe seems to be derived from the sound it makes as it sings. So they simply made the sound into a word. But that is so we shall be looking at two birds. Essentially, we have the hoopoe, which is there. Then we shall also have the crow.
Okay.
So we should be able to see this creature.
Yes.
Remember, we are saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has billions of creatures, but He has not mentioned them in the Quran. So whenever we see any creature that Allah has mentioned in the Quran, we try to dig a bit deeper to see exactly how this creature actually appears and some of the things that are known about it. So the hoopoe has that signature comb that is on its head. When it stands upright, it forms a crown, something like that. And it also has that very long beak that it uses to probe for insects and other things that it can be able to eat. So a few facts about this hoopoe. Number one is this bird here has that unique appearance. You don't have many birds that look like that with that signature crown that you see at the surface. So here is a video of the hoopoe moving around on the ground, how it probes for insects. So it is a bird that is in terms of location, we only have that bird in mainly the warm areas of the world. So the warm areas of the world, you find you have Africa, then you also have Asia, the parts that do have warm climates, then also the European countries that form within the Mediterranean area. Now interestingly, we have been seeing that many of the other creatures were created in very many species, that this one, they have just been able to come out with the 3 of them. Depending on their location. They vary a little bit based on their location. So you'll find the hoopoe, which is found in Africa, is one species. Then the one that is found in Asia is another. And the last one is the one that we find within Europe.
So America's
we don't have them in America. We don't have them in Australia and other places. They are only in those 3 places. That's why they also refer to them as Eurasian. There's those that stay within Europe and Asia, they refer to them as Eurasian.
I remember studying birds. Was it P4 or P5? We heard of woodpeckers. Could they be in the same family of woodpeckers?
These ones don't do the woodpecking, but the woodpecker also exists as a bird. But these ones don't do any woodpecking. For them, if they are looking for a habitat, they just find a hole that is already in place. They don't create the hole by themselves. So in terms of size, usually they measure the length. It is around 25 centimeters. It's not a very big one, but it's also not a micro one. So you can see it has some good length there. And under normal circumstances, that crown is not spread out, but it spreads it out of some time. Then weight, it has between 150 and 200 grams, which is then in terms of wingspan, these are the common characteristics of birds. It is between 44 and 48 centimeters, which is a fairly large wingspan. In terms of what it eats, primarily it eats insects, spiders, of course they are also part of insects. Then it also eats some small reptiles, things that it can manage to essentially prey on. It is able to eat. So that is what it essentially eats. So it has that curved beak, which is fairly long, and it allows it to probe into holes and other places in order to be able to pick insects and other things that it can eat.
So we always mention the creatures as being so many in the feminine gender.
As compared.
Yeah, are they also mentioned in
No, these ones seem to be having nearly the same ratios, because you see, for them when they are reproducing, they form a couple, and that couple stays together for the entire season. So it means the numbers of male and female may largely be the same, since they don't essentially have multiples, like the way you see a cock having to mate with many hens. In this case, you find these ones form a couple and they stay for an extended
so
period.
They have the perfect definition of monogamous
hardcore monogamous creatures. So for them, they do that, and usually Allah has a reason as to why He makes these creatures. In terms of eggs, they lay between 3 to 7 eggs, so they don't lay very many eggs. And usually when you see a creature laying few eggs, then you know that the eggs do have a very high chance of becoming new creatures. Usually Allah balances the risk factors. In case a creature has a lot of dangers that could injure the young ones, it tends to produce very many of them. Then as the need arises, the number could grow.
Wow.
In terms of migration, just as we know, many birds do migration. The hudhud or the hoopoe has some that stay in a single place, but there are also some that migrate. I believe the ones that are in Europe and Asia, because Europe has a part which is temperate and a part which is warm, the birds could do some simple migration over not very large distances in order to move from cold lands in case the winter does come. So that could be what makes them to migrate. Otherwise, the ones that are located in stable areas, they largely stay in their single location, but they have the potential to migrate.
Yeah, as we prepare to go into the particular verse that mentions them in the Quran.
Yes.
And perhaps why, as Muslims, we need to reflect so much on this bird. Is there some other interesting thing? You mentioned something about the sound they make and where their names come in. Is there a special mention about the sound?
Yes, the sound. Now, interestingly, they don't make that sound all the time across the year. And the sound is largely made by the males. So across there, they are largely silent. They don't do a lot of sound. But when the mating season comes, that sound is part of the mode of attracting the females. Now, you realize that within the bird families, for them, the male have to really do a lot of work to attract the females. The females want a serious male that has some specifically good parts, so the male now go ahead and demonstrate. Some of them do sing. So for the case of the hoopoe, they sing, they produce that sound. So they compete against one another until the female chooses the better one. So they only do that during the mating season as a way of attracting the females. That's what they usually do. And it is an interesting thing for them. Then lifespan, interestingly, they live for some good time. They can live up to 10 years. How long does a conventional domestic cock really live, minus human intervention?
Never.
Minus human intervention. Can it clock 10 years? I doubt.
Normally, I think after a year is where you see it is fully developed.
Now, interestingly, with that sound that the hoopoe makes, it is not like other birds that make a complicated song that has multiple sounds. For it just makes one monotonous sound, but it is interesting to hear. It does not vary it a lot like what you hear some other birds that sing really in a very interesting way.
Okay, so as we prepare to go into for a break, the verse and that the bird has to us as Muslims.
Now, the verse is Surah An-Naml from verse 20 to 28.
Surah An-Naml is chapter 27. Dear viewers, if you want to check it out, it is chapter 27, verse 20 to
28.
28. As our guest prepares to share with us the verses, Surah An-Naml also has some interesting facts that it's the only surah that has two basmalas or bismillahs.
Mm.
And the one at the beginning and the one in verse, I think should be 19 or around there, the way Allah says, Innahu min Sulaiman or Innahu Bismillahi Rahman Rahim. So the one time we was attending a Quran session, and this scholar was saying, do you know that Allah has made the Quran a miraculous book? There are 114 surahs, but you find Surah Tawbah doesn't have a basmala. So ordinarily there should be 113 bismillahs. Minus the one of Tawbah. Now to balance the equation, he puts two in.
So that's the he misses, but he still maintains the total number of basmala. By the way, we shall inshallah later be looking at that theme of the mathematical miracles that we see in the Quran. Allah, it is a book that is beyond what we human beings can even try to imagine. Now in Surah to Naml,
yes,
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about that story of the hudhud. The hudhud is the Arabic name for the hoope. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts by telling us, وَتَفَقَّدَ طَيْرٌ فَقَالَ مَا لِيَ لَا أَرَى الْهُدْهُدْ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. So Sulaiman, we know very well that our Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, that is referred to as Solomon within the Christian text, he made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked Allah to give him power that he will never give any other one after him. You know, the prophets do have a chance that Allah gives them what you can call a blank check.
Yes.
And they really ask for mega things, and Allah does for them. So Sulaiman was therefore given full control over nearly all creatures, including the invisible ones like the jinns. Yes. So here, this verse is telling us that he was inspecting the birds, meaning he had a variety. And this hudhud was not there.
It's not there, yes.
So he swore and promised. And he says, لَأُعَذِّبَنَّهُ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا أَوْ لَأَذْبَحَنَّهُ أَوْ لَأَتِيَنِّي بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. So he warned that if this hudhud has just gone AWOL, away without official leave, then I'm going to give him a mega punishment, or I might even what? Slaughter. So for Makafa Gaira Ba'id, after a very short time, the bird came back. This hudhud, he survived being punished or slaughtered. So for Makafa Gaira Ba'id, فقال أحط بما لم تحط به وجئتك من سبأ بنبأ يقين. So the bird told him, I have found something that you do not know. Meaning, even these creatures that were around Sulaiman, they knew that Sulaiman alayhi salam has essentially a lot of knowledge. But this bird now came and told him, I have found something that you don't know. Meaning the bird was sure that had Sulaiman known, he would have already taken action against these people. So the bird told him, I have come from the area of Sheba with some sure news, Naba'i Yaqeen. So it told him, Inni wajadtu amra'atan tamlikuhum wa utiyat min kulli shay'in wa laha arshun azim. So it told him, I have found these people from the Saba people being ruled upon by a woman.
Another interesting fact, I think it was something unheard of.
And the bird added that this woman has been given essentially everything. So the bird looked at it as if it is she has everything that she needs. And she also had a magnificent throne, meaning that throne where she sat was also something very different. The bird had never seen. Imagine Nabiuna Sulaiman
has a simple
has
throne.
yet he has a lot of power. But now the bird looked at this throne of Bilqis.
Wow.
We know that the lady's name was Bilqis.
Bilqis.
Unfortunately, the story is distorted a bit within other texts. They make it appear like the Prophet Sulaiman committed the adultery and etc. But for us as Muslims, we don't beshame prophets with the stories that show them as evil people.
As evil people, yes.
Prophets are representatives of Allah. It is just like you have an RDC who represents the president in the district. So the actions of the RDC reflect upon the president. So it is not possible that the president will just ignore the RDC and let them do whatever they want. A prophet comes with the message of Allah, and therefore they are protected from commission of sins, except some very simple things like getting annoyed at a person. Those ones that don't carry really much.
Okay.
So the bird goes ahead and narrates what it has found additional to those people. Wajadtuhum, wajadtuha, wa qawmaha yasjuduna li shamsi min dunillah.
Yes.
Wa zayyana lahum ash-shaytanu a'malahum fasaddahum anisabili fahum la yahtadun. So the bird goes ahead and says, this community that I have found, I found that they are worshipping the sun. And Shaitan has made it appear good for them, because you know Shaitan knows the rule that a normal human being thinks, a normal human being contemplates, and a normal human being does not do something continuously except that they keep reviewing it. So what Shaitan therefore does is to find a logical explanation for this bad act. For example, for you to worship the sun, Shaitan will deceive you that this sun is a representation of the God that is behind it, so that your conscience does not keep warning you and saying, no. You know, the conscience has an interesting effect on the human being. You see, Khalid bin Walid was one of those intelligent men in Mecca. So the day he became a Muslim, it is reported that the Prophet ﷺ told him that, for you, I was just waiting for time when you would join us, because I was very sure that you have the capacity not to worship idols. Although we know very well that Allah finally guides, but when a person has an element of wisdom, they have a higher chance of reflecting in a very simple way. So this bird tells us these people were worshipping the sun instead of Allah, and the Shaitan had made it appear something good for them. So that is the story of Hudhud. Now we know very well that the verses continue, and Sulaiman even sends this bird with a message. It goes to Bilqis, it delivers the message, it returns the answer, and those were the activities that the bird had. Okay,
so as we are preparing to go for a short break, can we get lessons, because we need to move into the crow as the second
bird. Now, for this particular bird, the Hudhud, one, we have seen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demonstrated to us that this bird has the capacity to understand that worshipping other things apart from Allah is essentially something that is unbefitting.
That underscores the importance of us guiding society.
Exactly. So we should
we have a responsibility to ensure that good prevails and any evil.
So that is something that we should be able to work. Then the other thing is to understand that these creatures that we see around us, they are not just brainless creatures. Granted, for us, we may not be interacting with them a lot in terms of their intelligent elements, but they have the capacity to think and to make some
it's telling the Prophet that I have come with something you have no knowledge of.
So it is
just tells you of the intelligence
of their capacity. So when we get to the crow, possibly we shall see some really interesting, intelligent actions that birds can pull off. But for this particular Hudhud, we could conclude it at that point, and essentially let me see if we have any special things. Now it is interesting that the Hudhud is the national bird of Israel. I don't know how they maybe because it is associated because it is associated with the
national bird of Israel.
That's their national bird. Just as we have the
crested crane for Uganda here. Inshallah. Okay. Wow. So, dear viewer, as we prepare to go in for the break, the Hudhud is mentioned in Surah Naml which is chapter 27, and from verses 20 to around 20 up to 28. So if you want to get into the details of the bird, kindly visit the Quran, chapter 27, Surah Naml, verses 20 to 28. I remember that Surah Naml is also the surah that has two basmalas, the one that appears at the beginning of all surahs, and another that appears in the letter that Prophet Sulaiman wrote to that lady Bilqis, the queen of Saba, that they call the queen of Sheba. And then, of course, some of the interesting things that he has mentioned is that the bird underscores the importance of us guiding, of showing concern for evil that is taking place. This bird found the queen presiding over people. They are blessed with a lot of good, but their missing ingredient was worshipping the true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question is to you and me, what is our role in ensuring that people get the right guidance? It ended by saying that Shaitan has made appear nice for them, worshipping of the sun, but they are not guided people. So do we have the same pain, the same attachment to see that people appreciate who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? If we do not, then at least we need to draw inspiration from this bird called the Hoope. Of course, there are so many other things that we get to learn from the bird. Inshallah, we are going to be taking a very short break, and afterwards we will be continuing with the discussion.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Etteka lirimu lyoyina okugoberera okufuuka omuwanguzi erisooka defeat the undefeatable. Gwe janguwa njagala okuba empewo ebikonde mpaka bwegwa wakati gwa sikirabwe gwa girabe gudde gikube no okuwangula kuzibu ne bw'okozesa MTN Momo wangu sasula obagula ne Momo okufuna omukisa okuwangula mobile money buli lunaku kozesa Momo app oba nyiga *165*3#.
Let's live it up and party and have cracking good fun. When it comes to edutainment, DSTV's number one.
Is everybody ready to go?
We've got the zaniest characters to transport you away. The party is cracking, so why not come play? You're gonna love it. We've got so many channels and a ton of new shows, like Disney and Nickelodeon, where anything goes. So live it up with DSTV. We bring the fun. You know we're number one.
Salaamu egabudde oli munna bizinesi oba olina ekitongole ekiwa obuweereza obw'enjawulo nga weetaaga kimanyike mu buli maka mu ggwanga lyonna. Salaamu TV ekuleetedde enteekateeka ya Salaamu egabudde. Guno gwe mukisa gw'ofunye by'otunda ne by'okola birangibwe ku TV yaffe eŋŋanzi wamu n'emikutu gyaffe emigatta abantu gyonna. Weegatte ku bukadde n'obukadde bw'abalabi baffe okwetooloola Uganda yonna, era bizinesi yo yeeyongera okumanyika nga bw'onyumirwa emiwendo egisaliddwako osobola okuganyulwa okwannamaddala mu kulanga kwo. Tosobola omukisa ssemakisa guno ogukuweereddwa. Okumanya ebisingawo tukubireko leero ku 0704-976-09 oba 0783-27-21-34. Salaamu egabudde ku Salaamu TV, olutimbero olw'emirembe.
Okulinnyisa omutindo gwa Afro Mobile. Eno y'engeri gy'oyinza okuzza obuggya omutindo gwa Afro Mobile yo. Funa app ya Afro Mobile okuva ku mukutu gwa Google Store oba App Store oba ku mutimbagano gwa www.afromobile.com. Londako forgotten password. Teekamu akaunti yo eya Afro Mobile oze buggya pin code yo. Ojja kufuna obubaka ku email yo okuli ne kode empya. Bw'oteekamu kode eyo olwo pin yo empya ekkirizibwe. Afro Mobile, emboozi za Africa ezannamaddala.
Afro. Omuto mu Kurani ku Salaamu TV omukisa guguno weewangulira ebirabo eby'enjawulo mu kaseera k'okuddayo ku ssomero. Kwata akatambi ka vidiyo ka ddakiika 2 zokka ng'omwana wo asoma Kurani okaweereze ku 0786103200. Olindirire omwana we yandifuna omukisa nga wangula ebirabo eby'enjawulo. Omuto mu Kurani. Salaamu TV, olutimbiru olw'emirembe. Eno ye Salaamu TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear viewer, we want to appreciate you again for keeping it Salaamu TV. This is your favorite show, the Alhidaayah show that happens every Monday and Thursday. On Mondays we look at Islam and science from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. In case you're just joining us, we want to remind you that or inform you that you can always get a recap of all the shows you've missed by going to the Salam YouTube channel, type Alhidaayah, and then you'll be in position to see what we have been covering. So we are covering a series of special creatures that are mentioned in the Holy Quran, and today we'll look at the Hoope or Hoope that we have exhaustively seen as playing a very important role in ensuring that the community is guided. They are one of the wonders that Allah has mentioned to us in the Holy Quran. So they demonstrate power, demonstrate the intelligence that Allah has placed in creatures, and perhaps as Muslims we need to learn something from them. In the second part of the show we want to look at another interesting bird, which is the crow. And I'm going to invite our guest again to help us understand the key facts, and then we'll look at what lessons we can derive from the crow, inshallah.
Now, the crow, alhamdulillah, the crow is mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah.
Yeah.
Surah Al-Ma'idah is the 5th chapter within the Quran.
Yes, please.
Surah Al-Ma'idah, the verse is 31.
Okay.
And this verse is a continuation of the scenario where one of the sons of Adam, alayhi salam, killed his brother. So who killed who?
There's Qabil, who is Cain, killed Habil, who is Abel. No.
So Qabil kills
Habil.
Habil.
No.
And since he was the first person to cause death to another, he was confused with that dead body.
Yes.
He has killed the brother, but he does not even know what to do with this body. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes ahead and guides him. So the verse says, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُرِيَهُ كَيْفَ يُوَارِي سَوْءَةَ أَخِيهِ. So the verse tells us that Allah sent a crow to this man who had killed his brother.
Okay.
And the crow showed him, in fact, the detail of the story, you know, Allah summarizes the story very much in the Quran. The details of the story are that the two crows fought and one killed another. So that this person would understand that now one has killed another, so what next?
Because the aspect of death had never
been
experienced before.
So this crow went ahead and dug a hole in the ground. That is what the ayah is saying. Yabhathu fil ardi.
Yes.
Once it dug the hole, it put in the dead one and covered with the soil.
Yes.
So this man now sees and says, Qala ya laytani a'ajaztu an akuna mithla hadha al-ghurab fa'uwariya saw'ata akhi fa asbaha minan nadmin. So he ended up again regretting what he had done, but you can see that the birds essentially taught him how he should be able to handle this issue here.
I I see, yes.
So you can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this bird particularly, which is called the Guraban. Now the crow is one of those birds that have very interesting intelligence associated with them. We shall see some videos of crows solving some really complicated problem. Actually, one that I saw, even me, there is no way I could come up with that kind of solution to the problem. So this is one video where they are testing the crow against a problem. So usually the problems they give these crows are related with food, because for a bird you don't really have much that it is interested in apart from food.
I see. Yes.
Now crows have been known to pull off some really complicated problem solving operations in order to be able to just find food. Now for this particular crow, they put some small lump of food inside that glass box, then they tied a string onto the food, then they put a hole within the glass. You see that black part there?
Yes,
so that is now the weakness within that entire structure. Now you will be able to see that that crow has never seen those things.
Yes.
But just by looking, it was able to detect that this part here must be different from the rest of this box.
I see.
And because it is a very intelligent bird, even after it had torn off that part, it still does not enter just stupidly. It still looks around and sees whether this is actually a trap. Because yes, the food may be there and I've found how to get in, but isn't this a trap? So it begins by moving around to see whether there's an owner to this thing. And you will see that finally that crow was able to get that. And that level of intellect, you will find that even we human beings, they're just a few. You see how it realizes that I have to pull this string multiple times until I pull this food out.
And then fly.
So that is the crow. The crow is some really very interesting creature, as we shall see things about it.
Wow.
These are a few amazing facts about these crows. One is intelligence. We have seen just one example of what these birds can pull off in terms of intelligence, but they are even known to create tools. Now you see one case, they put some food inside a container, and they put a wire which is straight outside. The crow went ahead to pick the wire and to turn it around until it created a hook, and then it used this hook to pull out what was needed to be done. So
I also remember in our primary, they used to give us those, I don't know, there would be pictures you interpret, but there was this case of where there were two pots. Actually, it was a pot, the water was so low, and this, because the water was so low, the crow couldn't dive.
So it started dropping stones into. So that is can go up. So the crow has really incredible level of intellect, because the ability to do what we call scheming, being able to predict an action based on a series of other actions. This is something that even human beings sometimes fail to do, but the crow will do it. So the first attribute is intelligent, extremely intelligent. They are able to solve puzzles. They are able to create tools and to use them. Yet it is just a bird, and I think it's the only bird that is able to do these kinds of things. Interestingly, this bird, because of its high level of intellect, it can even hold a grudge. Holding a grudge. We human beings are the ones, and also other animals, but this bird can hold a grudge, meaning it can create enmity between a human being and itself. There was one interesting case. A person captured that crow and put it in his room. Then he would terrorize it for some time. Then after that, he released it to go back into the wild. But whenever he would come to terrorize it, he would put on a mask. So one day, he entered the campus. It was a university campus. I think they were doing some research on bird behavior. So the moment he entered into the campus compound, Those crows used to live on a tree nearby.
Yes.
The entire community of crows all rose and ran away. Which takes us to the next attribute. These birds here, they are able to communicate to one another in a complex way. They don't just make a few small sounds.
Yes.
So the scientists therefore discovered in that case that this one crow that had been terrorized by this man with his mask was able to tell all the others that there is some bad person on this campus. He even dresses like this. And when you see him, you simply flee.
Flee from them.
Because once the man entered the campus, all the birds just flew off in one simultaneous action. So these crows are even able to communicate to one another using a range of vocalization. Then the other thing is about memory. They have excellent memory. Like I told you, the man terrorized the bird and it took some time before he came back with his mask, but the crow could remember him very well. They even remember individuals, not just the shape of a human being. They can remember individual human beings and attach even negative interactions that are known unto them. The crow is also a problem solver. That one we have seen.
I have seen yesterday.
That one we have seen. It can solve a very complicated problem. Possibly the selector will show us the next one. A man put some complex puzzle where you have 8 steps.
Oh, wow.
You need to pick a stone from here, drop it. He put food in a place where it needed a stick. Then he puts a short stick nearby. So the crow begins by picking the short stick, tries out, does not work. Then it realizes that there's a longer stick which was in some plastic container. But the plastic container needed some stones to be put so that the stick can fall, and wallahi, the crow was able to pull it off. Yet it was the first time. It was not that it had been trained,
Yes.
but it was able to know that if I can pick these stones and I keep dropping them here, this stick will fall, then I can pick it and I land. So capacity to solve problems is quite something interesting. And just like we human beings, they have very strong family bonds. I think the level of intelligence gives them also that capacity to create relations that are permanent. So crows are highly social birds and often stay in family groups.
Okay.
Young crows may help parents with raising their siblings. And I think they are the only bird which pulls that one off. Usually the birds just rely on the parent. But in this case, because of family, just like we human beings, the crow is able to help. The siblings can raise their younger ones. Then the other one is about adaptability. Of course, just like we human beings, we are found all over the planet. Yes, yet the planet has very many weather patterns and etc. This bird is also able to adapt. So you'll find it in rural areas. You'll even find it in the cities. You'll find it in cold areas. Everywhere this bird will be there.
Wow.
In terms of migration, which is some of the features of birds, some crows do migrate, but many of them stay in a single location. Diet, they are omnivorous.
Yes.
The crow is nearly like a human being. Omnivorous means eating everything. Now, interesting how these Latin make us remember all these complicated words, because the word omni just means everything. Then vorous is eating everything. So you end up with a complex word which is sometimes hard to remember, but it's, if you translate it, it's just meaning eating everything. Possibly these are some of the things that prevent we Africans from being proficient in our science. We are made to cram complex words that have very simple meanings that would reflect easily if we were using our local. Then nesting. So this is the video I was talking about. You will possibly see. Now you see those small boxes there at the bottom. Each of them has a stone. Now the stone has to be put in this transparent glass box in order for the stick, which is relevant for getting the food, to be there. But that bird, as you will see, was able to crack that puzzle. Something which even a young human being cannot think about. You see the entire layout. 8 different problems that you have to solve in order to reach the final destination. But the crow was able to very quickly decipher, because this video is essentially a recording of what was happening. And it does not show that it is possibly working by intuition. It tries out like on a step by step. Even that stick, it was not obvious that the stick was there. The stick was within a string, but it was able to pick the stick.
There's another thing I've
you see,
observed is that I think they are people friendly, especially if you're not harmful
to them.
Because giving the opportunity to someone to observe what you're doing.
You see, when a creature is intelligent, it also has capacity to do threat assessment, meaning it sees whether there is danger here or not. So if this person has been living near it and has never harmed it, it's able to conclude, just like other domesticated animals. Now you see what it is doing. It is going now to drop that stone in here in order to force that small black stick to fall, because for it is longer. But how does the bird even come up with that kind of complicated idea? And even to know that one stone will not do it. I have to keep dropping these stones until... And this is not something that came out of training, because for other animals you run multiple similar things until the animal gets used to the routine, and just like the dogs and some of the others. But this one, you see, once it threw those stones, now the longer stick is available. Then it goes and picks the food with the longer stick. That is how far these crows can go.
Our time is fast flying.
They build nests. The other hoopoe does not build nests. For it only looks for a hole in a tree and it puts its house there. But this one builds nests, and they're usually at the very top of trees in order to avoid predators. In terms of mating, they are monogamous, and they stay as mates for life. Possibly. They stay as mates for life, and they help one another in raising their young, just like the way we human beings are. So this is the closest relationship to have. Then they are playful. Sometimes just like you see human beings playing with balls or sliding along certain areas. Even these birds are able to do it. They have a lifespan of 15 to 20 years. This is
slightly more than one of the Hoope.
Now, interestingly, this bird, in terms of its common life, is nearly the opposite of the Hoope. Now, in terms of cleaning up, the Hoope is a fairly dirty bird. For it does not even clean where the young ones are. But this crow is able to keep the environment clean.
Wow.
Ensures that the place is very clean. Adaptation, it can eat anything, even human leftovers, etc. It can be able to do that. Then it also it does mimicry, just like we have the parrots. The parrots have very advanced vocalization, so they do mimicry. Even these ones are able to do mimicry. They can also learn by observation, just by looking at something. They are able to learn. Because if it can crack a puzzle, then looking at something being done and it adapts, then it's able to do that. So that's about the crow. And indeed, that is possibly why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected that crow to be the one to go and do the demonstration. Because remember, the crow would have to go through the process of killing the other crow, then digging. So it had to, and even realizing that now, in order to bury this one, I need to dig the ground, put in this one, then again cover it. So that is...
let's look at some of the lessons we should pick from this.
From these birds. Of course, we always remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created these creatures, and He has given them very simple responsibility. For them, they don't have this amana that we human beings have. For them, everything is already predetermined for them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them as simple creatures, and they are able to do things the way He has instructed them to do. So even we human beings, if only we could obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yes.
we could make us live the lives of these birds.
I also see the importance of knowledge, because somebody who is knowledgeable, like I was mentioned, you have a special status. in the community.
By
So
the way.
now the grub or the crop being sent to teach, it shows that our knowledge should be able to impact communities.
I want to add that. So the positive use of
Positive use of
knowledge is something that we see there. And from what we have seen, you should never underestimate these creatures that Allah has created. Because this crow is just a bird, but you can see that Allah has given it immense mental ability, sometimes even going beyond we human beings. Because many of us are unable to solve simple puzzles, especially if the education system is not problem solving oriented. You may find a very big challenge. Good thing the new curriculum nowadays has been redesigned to drive the education system more to solving problems, because all other creatures teach their young ones to solve problems, to survive. But you'll find that we have largely been running a curriculum that is just for cramming and does not really look at problem solving. So we pray to Allah to give us guidance and to enable us to get benefit out of some of these creatures that He has sent to us. Because whenever you see any creature, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already told us, وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. So whenever you see a creature and it has some interesting attributes, it is not just there for itself, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought it to you so that you can contemplate. You see a simple bird and it has very intelligent actions that it is doing. Just like we saw the hood is able to determine that these ones, what they are doing is just nonsense. They are worshipping the sun instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it even went ahead to take messages from Sulaiman back to the kingdom, then the kingdom back to Sulaiman, and there was that exchange until finally when we saw that the lady was invited to Sulaiman's place.
I think as we are winding
as
up,
it were.
talk about the issue of parenting. You've told us the crows train the young ones to also look after their siblings. I think today we have a lot of babysitting.
By the way, that is another interesting thing which you could learn from these birds. Because these birds, one, they share the responsibility of raising their young, meaning it is not left to one. Because by the way, for some of the other birds, Allah has given them a different thing. For as long as for it has fertilized, it goes away, has nothing like a responsibility. Sometimes you find Allah has given the entire responsibility to the female one, and in some cases He gives the entire responsibility to the male. But for these intelligent crows, for them they share, and we have seen that they even train their young ones. But already we have seen that the crow is able to learn from another. So just by the young ones seeing the parents, whatever they are doing, they are able to
shows the importance
help.
of being good examples.
So the birds are able to.
Today without absentee parenting.
And interestingly, by the way, we underestimate the impact of this absentee parenting that we are currently doing.
Really
now you see, any action that you do, you finally pay for it. Now we may at this point be doing this absentee parenting thinking that we have survived, but it will come back to bite us. Usually what happens to absentee parents is that the child does not build a connection with this parent. The child ends up seeing the parent as some kind of government organization that is only responsible for feeding and other things. Now,
and some rules.
Now a time comes when you need the company of that child. And usually that happens a lot to the affluent ones among us, in that the person dedicates a lot of time to finding issues of comfort for the children, but he forgets that these children have to bond with them. So you'll find many people end up reaching an age where they need the company of the children, and the children don't really have any feeling that they have an obligation, except if you are lucky enough and the children have been raised in a religious environment. Even if they didn't build that bond, they will feel the obligation from a religious perspective to respond. But if you have not done that, the children may leave you to live a very lonely and a deserted life just because you have not given them that training. Yet simple animals like these crows are able to essentially train their young ones to also help out. And that is something that we should be able to borrow from this scripture. Just like Kabil borrowed the issue of bearing, and up to now, we are all beneficiaries of that lesson that the crow taught.
I think also underscores the importance of the other hadith, the Prophet telling us so that if you die, everything you have as a possession or property ceases except three. The beneficial knowledge you
You
can see that we are benefiting from the knowledge of
that was acquired at that time.
Wow. Thank you very much, dear viewer. Of course, we would love to continue the discussion, but time is always a resource that we have to utilize in the best way possible, and we only have 40 to 50 minutes of the show. We hope that we have benefited something from the discussion. We only recommend and encourage that you do further reading and appreciation of the information that we are giving. We'll give you the verses, we give you some of the basic facts, which we hope you can build upon to have a better understanding of your religion of Islam. So we want to request that we continue learning Islam and do our best to worship Allah in the correct sense. I want also to encourage you to stay away from everything that would involve you engaging in acts that disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have already told you that the best way to evaluate yourself when the year is done is to see how you have fared in terms of progress in your religion. So if you've learned something in the course of the year, try to put it to action and implement it, perhaps, and get that better impact that we need in the communities. Otherwise, we can never exhaust the discussion more than this. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues blessing us all, and hope that inshallah we meet again in the new year that should start on Wednesday. Till then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Eno ye Salam TV. Adhan ngekutusibwa